Okay, we're getting real close to being ready to get going again. Before we get started this afternoon, I want to again thank our water partners. There's a lot of engineers in the room, and some of those partners are Apex Engineering Group, Bar Engineering Company, Bartlett and West, the Bismarck-Mandan Convention and Visitors Bureau, Devil's Lake Basin Joint Water Resource Board, Olmsted Twitchell PC, Vogel Law Firm. The water supporters are Ag Country Farm Credit Services and Farm Credit Services of Mandan, Dakota Supply Group, Dwyer Law Office, PLC, HDR, the Minnesota Valley Irrigation in Bismarck, Montana Dakota Utilities Company, North Dakota Water Systems Association, North Dakota Soybean Growers Association. They are all sponsors and help with all of the little things in this convention, and if you get a chance to tell them thank you, please do. Another thing that it would really be good to do is when you have a chance to visit with the vendors in the next room. They are an important part in paying our bills here too, so when you get a chance, say thank you to them and stop and visit with those people also. So the general session is about ready to start again. The silent auction is open, and if you haven't looked at them, the items that are up for auction are on the back table. They will be auctioned until after the awards banquet tomorrow night. And if you would like to buy raffle tickets, the 50-50 tickets, please see Julie or any of the other water staff members at the registration desk. Okay, with that, if I get all my paperwork ready. As we open the afternoon session of the 61st Annual Joint Water Board Convention, would you please rise, remove your hats, come to attention, and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is here behind me, so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first speaker this afternoon is Dr. Andrea Travnicek. Doug Burgum appointed Andrea Travnicek to lead the newly created Department of Water Resources in August of 2021. Dr. Travnicek's career spans more than 20 years of experience in natural resources, conservation, energy, agriculture, trade, national security, disaster response and recovery, communications, aviation, recreation, and public policy fields. At the U.S. Department of Interior, she had oversight over the Bureau with up to 17,000 staff members and budgets in excess of $3 billion. Travnicek earned her bachelor's degree in natural resources management and zoology, a master's degree in natural resource management, and a doctorate in philosophy, all from the University of North Dakota. Oh, really? No, North Dakota State University. Thank you, Dr. Travnicek. With that, welcome Dr. Travnicek.
I think they've got me set on this, so awesome, thank you. Hopefully we'll test to make sure, good to go? Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Great to be back up here standing in front of you. So great to hear from Hunter. Definitely a tough act to follow. We're definitely razzing each other back and forth with the Bison and Sue, and you know, I was telling him maybe he should like hang his hawk up in his office, right? That Postal Service hawk versus the Bison head. So it was fun to sit up front with him and just razz each other a little bit. But first of all, thank you to the Dakota water users, the Irrigation Association, the Water Resource District Association. Thank you, of course, for the invite to be here again. Always great to be in front of all of you, right? Feel that love, that community feeling here with all the water folks. Right, we all work really hard every day to get, whether it's water supply, flood protection, water resource districts, irrigation, so we're all working really hard at what we do every day, so great to be in front of you. So before we get started, I always warn the team, gonna have them stand up. So of course we couldn't do all this work, right, I can't do all of it without them, and then I know you work with them each and every day, so if we can have the Department of Water Resources team stand up, so you can see who's all here. If you can all make a goal to try to meet a new team member of ours, please do so. This is a great opportunity, right, to meet our regulators, our water appropriation folks, our water development folks, water supply, all those different types of things. So this is the team. So I just want to thank them for all their great work that they continue to do in North Dakota. Also, right, we've got our Department of Water Resources, and that was discussed a little bit, where, of course, we're the new agency that was restructured in 2021. But we still also have the State Water Commission. I know that we've got some of the State Water Commissioners in the room. So same type of thing, if they're in the room, give a wave or stand up. So you also want to make sure that you have the opportunity to visit with them, tell them if we're doing a good job, a bad job. We've been working really closely with them on modernizing the cost share program. This is the map, of course, that shows you who your representatives are, who the commissioners are. So please take the time this week to visit with them as well. Also, I know we will have Governor Burgum here on Friday for the State Water Commission meeting. Of course, the Ag Commissioner is also on the commission as well. And then the director serves as the secretary to the commission too. So we thought we'd just go a little bit over the budget. There's always a lot of discussion related to how many dollars, where are they going, what buckets are they in, and of course is how we look into the future for some of that development and planning. So again, here in North Dakota, we're still very fortunate, right, for the forethought that we get 20.5% of that oil extraction that goes into the Resources Trust Fund. And I think I've mentioned this before, right, as we go and we speak, whether it's in-state, out-of-state, we've got other states that are very jealous of the dollars that we get to put towards water infrastructure, you know, every single day. So as we're looking at it, and I've got to get closer, right, with my eyes. Getting older, Pat, we were talking about that. So for the 23-25 biennium, right, the revenue projection was close to that $450 million. Also, we have a water stabilization fund now where anything above that revenue does go into, I don't know what to say, a bucket, but it goes into another fund that we'll be able to work with legislators and others to determine how those dollars go back into the bucket discussion for this next legislative session. So as we look at where the dollars have gone for 23-25, you can see how that was all broken out with the $118 million that was going towards capital assets. Of course, that's our Southwest Pipeline, our NAS project. Water supply, that $316.2. flood control projects, rural water projects, general water, and discretionary. So this slide is just showing you where the dollars have gone so far for this biennium. So we're making a lot of progress getting those dollars spent. You'll see some more coming out of capital assets after we get through some meetings on Friday. But great job, everybody, in trying to make sure that we're getting those dollars at the door, because we know as we get into legislative session, everybody's looking at those carryover dollars. This just gives you an idea of where the dollars are being spent. So it is just great to really see the dollars being spread out across the state. So you can see the different colors that are associated with the various buckets, the various types of projects. So this just gives you that idea of where all those communities are located. And it's been touched on with the theme, with the water matters. So we really did reach out to our stakeholders, our cost share partners, on some of the projects that we've seen over the last biennium here. First one being over in Valley City, right? We've been working really closely on trying to make sure that we're taking care of those dangerous low-head dams. So in partnering with Barnes County and then with the department and the State Water Commission. So really appreciate the leadership of the mayor there too in Valley City. And as we're looking at the flood protection side of the house, all the great work that's being done up in the Mouse River, where we know we've got 11,000 people that were impacted. My parents and my sister, they were impacted by that as well. So just an opportunity for the Souris River Joint Board to be able to partner with us, continue to make a lot of progress on that flood protection project. And then as we look at it from a water supply standpoint, so continuing still to make progress on the Red River Valley Water Supply Project, looking at that local support, working with the mayors in Fargo and Grand Forks and the other communities along the way. And of course, when this project is completed, it's going to serve over 50% of the population in North Dakota. Another thing that came out of this legislative session was that the State Water Commission is now able to partner with the tribal nations. So that was House Bill 1385. And you could see that we were able to put those dollars to work right off the bat. So working with Fort Berthold, Turtle Mountain, you can see some of the dollars that have been put together there with the 1.3 million. Turtle Mountain by Chippewa, there's going to be one that's going to coming up on December 13th, and that would be 3.1 million as well. There have been a few changes related to the cost share program. We continue to try to modernize this as we see different questions, concerns come up. So big things for this biennium, just making sure all of you follow the law. We didn't think we had to put this in here, but we want to make sure that all applicable laws are being followed. Also, there was a lot of discussion related to O&M, so that meter replacement. So right now they're saying that you can't come in and get meter replacements considered, so that is ineligible. Also, people wanted to see to make sure that a lot of the local sponsors, that the communities were signing off on the projects. So now you are going to have to make sure that you've got a sponsored signed letter and some meeting minutes that come in when you're applying. And then also, if there is something that you're not following the law or you're doing some falsified information related to us, there is a repercussion with no participation within the program for 24 months. So just some new things that are added in, just trying to make sure that we're being responsive and making changes as needed. So this just gives you an idea where we've been working on our water development plan, looking ahead to 25, 27 for the biennium. So in working with Pat's team and with Corey, we were able to get information, get letters out to the communities. We had over 600 requests that came in for the 25-27 budget. And this is where you can see that breakout. We're seeing a trend, right? So in 21, 23, it was $0.64 billion that was requested for the two-year biennium. 23, 25, a little over biennium. And for 25, 27, $1.4 billion. So that's what's just being requested for the next 2 years. So you can see how that's broken out with the regional water supply, with that $430.3 million. And a lot of that is Red River Valley Water Supply Project. And then how it's broken out with the flood control, rural water supply, conveyance, and general water. So that's why we really work hard to make sure we are modernizing that cost share program, making sure we are trying to spread the dollars where it needs to go. Right, there was a question that came up this fall is, I thought we were getting ahead, Andrea, why does it continue to go up? And I know that we're starting to get to areas that are more expensive to build to. We're also doing a lot of replacements. So that's where we know that we still have that trend to make sure we're putting those resource trust fund dollars to use on the water side of the projects. This just gives you an idea as we look at that 10-year outlook. We also work with the Association of Counties, with the League of Cities, trying to identify the different projects that we see into the upcoming future. And as we look at that 10-year projection, where some of the able to get to a lot of projects, but also recognizing there's still some shortfall. And of course, it all depends on what that Resources Trust Fund, what that revenue is that's coming in every year. But again, still very fortunate for what we have at the table to work with. So as we were looking at the 25-27 biennium with that $1.4 billion worth of asks, where we look at the high priority projects, the moderate priority projects, the low priority, and then also knowing we've got some of these really large regional projects that need to be completed. So in working with all of you, and then of course with Governor Burgum and his administration, this is ultimately what Governor Burgum has proposed as it relates to the buckets for the discussion to start this legislative session. So you can see for capital assets, that of course includes the Southwest Pipeline and NAS, so a little over 130 for Southwest. NAS 12.7, Devil's Lake close to 2 million to make sure we're continuing to work on outlet operations. Water supplies, dollars related to Red River Valley Water Supply, that 173 million. WAS, the 46.5, Municipal, and then as we look at the flood control projects as well, looking at South Bismarck, Mouse River, and Valley City. And then the other buckets you can see related to rural water continuing to be a high priority, general water projects, as well as discretionary. And it's been nice to have that discretionary bucket that allows the agency to have some of that flexibility. You just don't know if we're going to get into emergency response with the flood, the drought disaster livestock program. So it's been great just to have that as another avenue for us to be working with. I know there's also been a lot of questions where this is Governor Burgum's budget. Of course, we know that administration wraps up on Saturday. I know many have been asking, so we do have our first meeting with Governor Armstrong's administration coming up on December 19th. So we'll be able to go over what we presented, what Governor Burgum has presented, and then of course looking at any of the priorities that Governor Armstrong would have as well. So more discussions to come. I know many of you have been having lots of meetings too with him and his team. So we look forward to seeing what his recommendations are going to be as we roll into this next legislative session. Another thing, of course, we put forward was our optional requests. So really appreciate all the support that we were able to get from all of you last time as it relates to FTEs and different equipment and operation things that we need. So from a high-level standpoint, these were the operational requests that we had submitted that Governor Burgum then had presented as well. So getting those federal dollars for the Biota water treatment plant, making sure that we've got some of the equipment that we need on hand, emergency pumps, and excavator replacement, data logger replacement. It's also been a high priority, of course, to make sure we're putting Missouri River to beneficial use. We've been working in the background related to trying to identify areas for intakes on the Missouri River. We have a draft report that we're looking at right now. We're hoping that we get that finalized here in the next month or two. So that we can actually get out and have some field work, some field investigations done here in the future, knowing that we really just want to make sure that whether it's irrigation, whether it's more water supply, we know that we've got a lot of economic development discussions going on within the state. So trying to be proactive on where we think some of these intakes could possibly be built. Also, I don't know if anybody's realized that the SOB is gone. So the state office building where we used to reside on the Capitol on State Street, it's no longer there. We've been residing at the Bank of North Dakota for the last 2 years. So we want to continue to have discussions. Is it appropriate for us to stay at the bank? Should we be going somewhere else? So that's where you see that there's $3 million for a discussion related to where Department of Water Resources should reside. Other recommendations, just making sure we're staying up on funding available for overtime of our team. Also making sure there's funding related to state water commissioners that might want to do some more travel, conferences, everything that they need there, and of course our temporary salaries. Big thing too, I know everybody else is dealing with this from a workforce standpoint, so really want to make sure we do have an internship program in place. So I think this is going to be a good discussion for us as well, just trying to get people up to speed on what the department is and see if we could get some of those college students in and then hopefully coming back to the department in the future. And then a new position. So we were able right now for discussion going into legislative session is looking at 9 FTEs in addition to the 93 team members that we already do have. So that's everything. One of the big ones is a deputy director. We know that there's a lot of conversations taking place at the international level, at the federal level, at the state level, everything with economic development, with tribal nations. So we're really trying to make sure that we are every place that we need to be. So trying to have some more leadership, also outreach and education. And then we want to continue to build our culture too, from an internal standpoint. So working on our recruitment and our retention side of things. So getting a training development person in our agency. So more to come on that, but we were really excited for the discussion that we had with Governor Burgum and just making sure that we've got the right resources in the agency that will assist all of you. We've also been in the background doing a lot of meetings and having some working group discussions. And right now we do have 11 agency-sponsored bills. We had to get these in last week, so this was on Thursday last week where we got those in under the deadline. So a lot of big focus is still on that red tape reduction. We continue to try to find different efficiencies, being responsive to whether it's permits that need to be turned around, questions related to projects. So you'll see bills that, as it relates to us, some of the cleanup, some clarification. Also, continue to work on NAWS, right? So last session, we went from an advisory board on NAWS now to an authority. And now as it's maturing, what are the roles and responsibilities of that authority? We'll be working really closely with legislators to help carry this bill. So that'll be a topic. There's also been in the background working with legislators on NFIP and a township study, so this will be something that's discussed a little bit more, as well as it relates to the NFIP program and the role of townships and the role of counties. And then water appropriation updates, so working with Andrew and his team, just trying to make sure that as you put water permit applications in, what's the availability there. So more to, like I said, more discussions, but those are the ones that are some of them are agency bills, and then some that we're going to be looking for legislators to carry. And of course, we'll be sitting in the resolutions meeting tonight, knowing that we're hearing of a lot of other bills and discussions coming up. So another thing we've been working on, just trying to think ahead for the future on where we want to make sure that we're developing the resources here in North Dakota, making sure that we're staying on top of the innovation, the technology. So I had already mentioned the Missouri River intake study. Like I said, we've got a draft related to that that's with the agency right now, hoping to get that finalized in the next month or two. We were also tasked this last biennium to do a report related to the intake that already exists just south of Washburn for the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. So what are some of the entities that could be utilizing that? So whether it's the energy park that's up there, whether it's some of the communities. So that's where you'll see the QR code that'll take you directly to that, so you can see what some of the discussions are that have been taking place there. There's also been a big emphasis on irrigation. This last biennium, there was discussion on what the cost share should be with irrigation. How do we get more active in putting Missouri River to that beneficial use? So we have been working with Garrison Diversion, NDSU, the Irrigation Association, just working on that overall statewide study related to where irrigation should be prioritized. So I know that that'll be coming out in the near future also. Data is a big deal as it relates to managing water. We're fortunate here in North Dakota where we do have these pushing remote sensors that we do have out in the field that we continue to improve and collect more information from. Biggest thing is we wanted to see where we were at compared to other states. So we did a survey of all the other western states to see what kind of technology that they're using. We've had discussions related to telemetry, how do we capture that data? So this was an opportunity to do that broad brush, hear from other states, We were able to get that report back in, a couple things that we're working on. How can we partner with universities? How can we do a better job working with our state agencies, even coordinating across other state agencies? And then there was a lot of discussion related to soil moisture. So I think you'll see more of that discussion too. But those are some of the high points that the water appropriation team is going to be working on. So more to come on that. And then finally, we're wrapping up a multi-state survey of surface water management practices. So this was looking at 21 different states, how they manage their surface water. And right now, like I said, we're gathering all that information from the states. I think every time that we get into legislative session, there's always comparison of, well, how does Minnesota do it? And I think this will give everybody a framework to see what the other states are doing so we can continue to have that future-looking conversation on how we want to manage water in North Dakota. Does it continue to be at a county basis? Does it need to be at a watershed basis? Right? Who should be involved? We hear a lot about joint water boards, so this will just give a little bit more background related to other states and where we might want to move in the future. So as we looked at our state-owned projects, I know I already kind of talked about it from the bucket standpoint, but we continue to make progress on NAS. Of course, this is the map, the regional area where it's located. And just to give some high points of what we've been able to accomplish over this biennium, many of you, as you're driving up north to Minot, you might have seen some construction going on near the Snake Creek pumping plant, and you continue to see the Biota water treatment plant go up near the Max area. Of course, we have been a little bit delayed. The goal was to try to get water moving this year. However, with some supply chain issues, that's what drug it out for an 18-month delay. So the goal right now is that summer of 2025 to be moving water out of Lake Sakakawea. We continue to work with the Bureau of Reclamation and the Army Corps of Engineers and all of our different partners with the city of Minot and, of course, the rural water systems associated with NAS. But we are making progress, not as quickly as we would like, but it is a complicated project, but we hopefully will get water moving this next summer out of the lake. Our other project, the regional water project that we work with the Southwest Authority on, of course, that's the Southwest Pipeline Project, and continuing to work on the various updates on the infrastructure associated here. So some of the highlights that we're focused in on right now and for the next biennium. Big thing that you'll see on the agenda on Friday for the State Water Commission meeting is hoping to approve the bid associated with the updated water treatment plant. So that'll be a huge deal for discussion on Friday. Also continuing to work towards the Burt to Hebron expansion, so making sure we're getting up to that rural area. We know that we've had people waiting for a long time to get access to the water supply. Continuing to work on hydraulic improvements, especially in that North New England area. And then, of course, a lot of discussion related to the West Zone transmission line, knowing that there's a lot more development that's taking place as we get out west. And then, of course, it gives more opportunities into the future, too, on what can be built out there in the southwest part of North Dakota. I already mentioned the Devil's Lake outlets, so had mentioned close to that $2 million that we'll be looking at for the next 25-27 biennium. This year, we were able to discharge 113,000 acre feet. So you can see that this was the highest amount of water that we were able to push out since 2019. So of course, the flooding issue up in Devil's Lake continues to be a high priority. I know that this will continue to be a discussion, but continuing to try to make sure that we've got the sound infrastructure in place, modernizing the equipment as needed, and just trying to make sure that we're staying up on all the different pumps and the outlets associated with it. So as we look at managing North Dakota's water resources, I know everybody's usually interested in where all the water is going as we look at all the different uses across the state. So that's where you can see there's still that 55.3% that's going towards irrigation. Next up is municipal water use, and then industrial after that. So getting close to 400,000 acre feet of water that is being used within the state. We've been using this map quite a bit. You've probably seen this the last couple years, but knowing that we really do want to continue to focusing on using Missouri River, but we also know that we've got great resources associated with our aquifers. But many of you have seen that some of the areas with the aquifers, our permitting has slowed down. We are getting to a point where in certain areas we might not be able to give it a permit so that you have water readily at your fingertips, because we still need to be able to protect those prior uses, those prior permit holders. So we are really trying to figure out what is the next management policy discussions that happen with aquifers. And this gives you an idea of where we're starting to hear that near full appropriation, and then also where you still have some of the good source, that surface water for availability. So this type of map is what's going to keep driving the discussions related to next step on management. And that's where we did put out a study related to the managed aquifer recharge. So knowing that we've got some of those aquifers where it's going to be tough if we maybe get 1 or 2 more permits out. So what are the recharge capabilities that we can do? So this study is going to give you an idea of which aquifers we want to look at a little bit closer to try to identify that MAR capability. And so you'll probably see more on that too. On Friday, there's a phase 2 related to this where we're going to dive into 3 more of the aquifers to get more information, to get more modeling, see if we could get some more permits out the door, and then also just trying to see, looking ahead, is there other infrastructure that we could be putting into place to utilize the MAR capability. And of course, as it relates to the aquifer side of things, again, I already touched on the real-time data, the presence system. Right now, we have close to 600 of these across the state. That real-time data information is the one that's helping us with any permit decisions. We also saw a few years ago getting them out there and deployed in an emergency situation as it relates to the Burgundy Dam. We are still trying to update a lot of the systems too. You see that we've got 53 units that have a rain gauge and that soil moisture sensor. So all these different data points are coming in and assisting us with our modeling, our decision making. And like I said, we're still strides ahead of some of the other states, but always still looking to try to figure out how we can continue to be more innovative. Another big discussion, this is not new, but now it seems like all these economic development projects kind of keep coming at us at a quicker pace. So we continue just to remind any of you that know of an economic development project that might be coming into your community. We continue to work with the Department of Commerce, but these are some of those larger scale economic development discussions that we're hearing across the state. So whether that's the soybean crush plant, the dairy projects, sustainable aviation fuel. So these are all things that are coming our way, and we know that it takes time to do the research and then get the permit out the door. So the sooner that you've got the department at the table for discussions, please keep us in the loop, and many of you have been doing a great job on that, so thank you. Federal issues, right? So we're always really tracking what are the discussions coming out of Washington, D.C. associated with the different federal agencies, and how does that impact decisions related to water here in North Dakota. Right now, there is a U.S. Forest Service Dakota Grassland Travel Management Plan. Big comments that we have been put into that is just making sure that we can have access to the water that we need, and also still continue to express that it's the state that decides, working with the water rights. So just making sure a big push on that. Along with the BLM, the Resource Management Plan, just concerns again, making sure that North Dakotans, we can access the water that we have to do the projects that we need to do. USACE, the Water Resources Development Act, there's always things that we're watching really closely in here as it relates to the Missouri River. Sometimes there's funding in there related to different projects within the state. Bald Hill Dam Operation Plan, we know that this is being updated too, and of course as we're trying to get closer to the Red River Valley Water Supply project on how the dam is operated, that then ties into the different permits associated with the project and permits that existed before. Snake Creek Embankment, this is a big one that you've probably heard. I think we've mentioned it before, where the Corps wants to do an operational fix related to the embankment, and we've got concerns that we think it should be a structural fix. The Garrison project and the Snake Creek Embankment, there's a lot of multiple authorized purposes. They continue to focus on the dam safety side of things, and we continue to say that we need it for water supply and recreation and other factors. So this has been front and center for us. This is the one that we were asked to testify in front of Congress by Senator Cramer, so we appreciated the invite by him to come out. And then the last one that we've been working on front and center is the Dakota Water Resources Act. This, of course, is the mRNI program that we've been able to get through the Bureau of Reclamation due to the fact that the Garrison Dam, right, we lost thousands of acres. We were made several promises of what North Dakota was going to get by giving up the land and the communities that gave up the land. So we've been working really closely with Senator Hoeven. We've hit our cap on the mRNI dollars for rural water. It was 200. We've hit that cap. Tribal nations, they've hit their cap. So the senator has been working really hard with us and with Rural Water and Southwest Pipeline and NAS and the tribal nations to try to come up with a package to have some federal dollars coming into our water projects as well. So I know we're getting in the 9th hour on this one, and there's still a lot of discussions with some of the other states. But again, we really appreciate the work that Senator Hoeven and others have to put into the work into this bill. Other ongoing efforts, I know that we still have lots of challenges and opportunities out there. We've been working really hard to get dollars out the door. We always know, though, that there's changing conditions, and we know that there will be a lot of discussion this session related to agriculture, to drainage, to water conveyance. Also more discussion related to water reuse and recharge, making sure that we are doing a good job of reusing the great resource that we do have. Also, infrastructure and resources. You already heard about how many dollars are needed for this biennium, how many dollars there are for discussion, and then making sure that we're educating, that we've got the technical capability, we've got the legal capabilities, emergency responses. There's always something comes up, right? We saw this fall the fire, we saw it in February, we saw the flooding situation. And then just knowing that we're still going to be at the table competing for uses of this water at the international level and, of course, with other states. So just trying to make sure that we're all staying vigilant, working together, trying to make sure that we've got some good policies in place and good people at the table having the right conversations at the right time. Just to give a few overview on things that we've been working on too is this just gives you an idea of the spring ice jam that had occurred in February. So appreciated all the great work of working with the National Guard, working with the Department of Emergency Services, the state engineer, the Army Corps of Engineers. It was that whole of government that came together to work towards a common goal of breaking up that ice jam. So that's where you were seeing the Black Hawk there. And just the amount of resources and time and being able to respond super quickly, get everybody at the table, having the right conversations and aligning those resources. And then we mentioned just education related to water resources in general, right? Sometimes we take for granted, we turn the faucet on, or we go outside and we're protected by a levee, or we've got these great crops with the irrigation, and it's amazing where some people, where's the water coming from? So you might have seen from us, and just want to kind of take a poll so we can have Cam and our team. So how many people are receiving our Know Your Aquifer, like our education campaigns? Is anybody getting, okay, so we got a few, okay. All right, we're going to keep working on it, right? So I know we'll get Cam and we'll figure out how to get more of you signed up. Where we started that this spring, it was the Know Your Aquifer campaign. This summer, we did the In the Clouds campaign because there's a lot of discussion related to the cloud seeding program, and there'll be more discussion this next legislative session on that. And then right now, we're working on the watershed thread. So what is a watershed? So just trying to get tidbits out there, trying to get more folks up to speed on what the water resource is in the state and how it's being managed. So Cam, you just get to walk through everybody and get everybody's contact. So another fun thing that's been updated, I don't know, Pat, if it was like 10 years ago that this map was out. So everybody maybe rush, because I don't know how many you brought with. But this map has been updated, so this gives you an overview of the North Dakota water resources, goes over the various facts, some of the rural water projects, crops, those type of things. So the map is here. So that's going to be our hot thing off the press. I don't know that I've already got it hanging in my office. I told Pat I had the old one when I even moved to Washington, D.C. It came with me. Just wanted that reminder of North Dakota water wherever I was at. So really excited that the team has been able to update this. And then just a few other places where you might have seen us out and about is that water education and outreach. This has become an important program, so just besides our education campaigns, getting out into the schools where we were able to have 10 water festivals throughout the state, close to 5,000 students that we were able to get in front of. And also, we were able to get to other outreach opportunities, right? 18 other outreach events that we were at this year, whether that was Touch a Truck in Mandan, we've been at the Bismarck Larks, also the State Fair for Water Day. So if there's anything too that you would like to make sure that we've got a booth at, I know we're trying to make sure that we're at Association of Counties, League of Cities, Rural Water, but anywhere that you think that people might want to hear a little bit more about what we're doing, please let us know. And also volunteering, right? We continue to work on the culture of the agency, making sure where we're giving back and participating. And that's where this summer we were working with the Canoes for a Cause, also the Day of Caring through the United Way, and then also making sure with some of the students with the Science Olympiad program. So just really fun to have our team members get out, be part of the community, give back a little bit. So too, again, if there's anything that you would like to see us be involved with, please let us know. And then just finally, just because, right, we all have the daily grind, everything that we continue to work on, making strides on that, but just making sure too that we're making those partnerships. You can see with the Red River Basin Commission, we've got Randy up there that was able to get the leadership award through them, his many decades of work and very well respected within the region and within the state. We've got Sindhu there. She was able to get the Harvest Award through the Governor's Award with all the great work and the quality work that she's been able to work on with the Southwest Pipeline. And then Cam again, I don't know if many of you know about that, the Guinness World Record associated with s'mores, but we were part of the team associated with that. And of course, all these team members can't do it alone, where everybody's really working hard together and to do the great work and to make sure that we can get the services out to all of you. So with that, that was a quick overview of what we're doing at the Department of Water Resources. But we continue just to try to look for areas where we can be thinking ahead on strategically managing this resource, knowing that there's a lot of changing needs out there and a lot of requests. But at the same time, get the infrastructure built, get the dollars out the door for you, and then just be able to be responsive as things change. So I will go ahead and pause there, see if there's any questions, if there's time. Otherwise, our team, I'm going to be around all day and tomorrow and Friday, so if there's any questions or concerns, if you're mad at me, if you're happy with anything I've done, don't hesitate, right? I've had bigger knives in DC, so it's fine. So we can definitely have our discussions. I was thinking about is no bad days, and some of those harder days and sometimes water discussions are hard, but I think the more that we can stay at the table together, working together, learning from each other, really just thinking through the issues is what counts. So thank you.
We're running a little behind already.
I know. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Travnicek. There were a lot of information up there on those slides, and I'm not sure that we can process it all without a little thought. So if you have questions that come up, Andrea is always available if you run her down. As Andrea indicated, this next year, in just a couple short weeks, really, we start the 2025 legislative session, and as Andrea indicated, there's a lot of water needs, a lot of water projects that are ongoing, and from the perspective of the Department of Water Resources, and there are also needs from some of the other areas. And so our next speakers are Eric Volk. He's the Executive Director from the North Dakota Rural Water Systems Association, and Matt Gardner, the Executive Director from the North Dakota League of Cities, and they will give us their updates on some of their project needs. So, Eric?
How's everybody doing? That was pathetic. Excellent, yeah. Well, Hunter did a great job. Andrea, as usual, did a great job. Poor Matt and I were talking, and then Senator Hoeven's addressed after us, so we get squeezed in between, so hopefully we'll do our best. There's a lot of stuff going on. You got a sandwich up here for me and everything, so that's great. Won't be too long. Again, Eric Volk, North Dakota Rural Water. Just going to get a quick update on some of our initiatives going into the legislative session and some of the things that we are working on. So the vision of the association, we worked on this a couple years ago, of course, is to make sure that all North Dakota has access to affordable, ample, and quality water. We are a membership association, so our mission is to educate, promote, support, and lead the water industry in providing quality service to their customers, the systems, the cities, the associate members. They're members of our association, so we help them do a great job. The association was created in summer of 1974, so we're in the middle of our 50th anniversary. A lot of things going on in the early 70s. Systems across the state came together and found out there were people doing similar things all across the state, and then they thought it would be wise to have a statewide agency to be that unified voice. It was a bunch of volunteers mostly putting these systems together, not your normal water professionals that we see today. So a lot of things needed questions that didn't have answers right away. A lot of things that were new to not just North Dakota, to the world. There were a lot of great water pioneers that we're all thankful that took the leap and did some impossible things in the early days. So today, the association, we have a staff of 13 that help all rural and small water and wastewater systems with various tasks, operation and maintenance, so the technical side, managerial and financial. So I'm pretty proud of the staff and just want to make a big shout out to them. So just a little bit on our 50th anniversary, again, 1974, so July 2nd, 15 bold and visionary systems met in Carrington and started the association. Articles and corporations were signed on the 9th, and the Secretary of State stamped them on the 16th. So we had a little celebration this summer. I know some of you were there, and thank you to some of you that helped participate in that event. So this is one of our oldest maps out there. This is what the systems looked like in 1975. So a lot of them were still in the formative phases, but some were actually in operations. And today, when we talk about rural and regional water systems, they're not always all the same. So here's a little breakdown of what it looks like today when you hear rural or regional systems. There's 20 rural water districts, so those are in Century Code 6135. So those were co-ops or associations that converted to help, that benefited the system. They could take advantage of some tax advantages, some funding opportunities that weren't available to them as a co-op or association. We have 4 tribal systems, 2 that are under their county water resource districts, so they're under the county, 2 state-owned regional systems, 2 non-state-owned regional systems, still have 1 association and 1 co-op. So those systems in 2024, they touch every county of the state, provide water to about 167,000 rural residents through 71,000 connections, close to 42,000 miles of pipe, serve about 75% of MAT's 355 incorporated cities, and they serve to some of those bulk cities about 132,000 residents. And the water districts have no taxing authority, so any revenue that they need to operate and maintain the system comes from the rates that the users pay. So this is the map of all the systems out there. There are a few blank areas in the state. That doesn't mean that there's not service there. We could have a few services there, but there are a few areas that are just pretty tough to get to. Not that they're forgotten about, they just don't currently have service. So I mentioned those 355 incorporated cities, so it breaks down that 269 of those are on rural or regional system, and the breakdown that 269, 110 receive that through individual metered, so it might be a city, but the rural water system comes to that town, and everybody has their own curb stop, has their own meter, so it's just a bunch of rural residential people that happen to be just living in a city, so that's how they decided to provide service to them. And then 159 provide bulk service to those cities where they bring the water up to a certain point, and then the city distributes. They have their own distribution system. And then there's 4 cities that receive, to make the math work out, there are 4 cities that receive water from another city. And then the remaining 82 cities have 8 from their individual wells, so a small community, they would have each have their own wells in town, and then 74 have their own sources. So we do track that on the map, so there should be the 82 cities on there, so use that during the legislative session just to show who's left to serve and what size they are, where they're at, and things like that. So historic funding for rural water projects, a lot of their own money, the users pay a pretty good fair share of projects, operation and maintenance, and things like that. Back when the systems were first started in the early 70s, there was some farmers' home money, so it's USDA rural development now. Grand Forks Trail, when they started as our first rural system, they had the largest loan of its time. About $4 million came from farmers' home. Then the association in the mid-70s was able to advocate for some state funding, about $10 million in the mid-70s. And then the mid-80s, we had the federal M&I. 1990s, we had the SRF funding from EPA through the state. 2000, the Dakota Water Resources Act. And then we've had the Resources Trust Fund for quite a few years, but early 2010 is where we saw a larger amount of money going towards rural projects. And like Andrea had mentioned, we're very fortunate and blessed to have the Resources Trust Fund. Just think of, even in your small world of water or whoever you represent, just think how the people you represent or the things that you've accomplished over the years with this funding. It's just, I don't know what our water landscape would look like without this fund. So, way back in the 80s when they passed that, it's a big thing. Very grateful for that. So I just tracked it since the 11-13 session, and just in the rural water bucket. And so these are the smaller rural and regional project. This doesn't include Southwest, WAS, NAS, Red River Valley. Those are in different buckets. So about close to $300 million. So that's very, very good for rural North Dakota there. So what are we looking for in this upcoming session? I have about 57 projects from 20 systems. I start sweating right about now when I look at these numbers. They're pretty big. When I gave my presentations this summer, they were smaller numbers, so they've either grown or we forgot about something. But in summary, you're looking for about $267.9 million in state grants. So Matt and I were talking beforehand. I think this next biennium we'll just let the rural water and the cities take the 580, and then, okay, that one, I should have let Matt tell that joke. That one, I won't make it out here. I know I've got some enemies, but now I really do. So we'll just advocate for, a slice of the Resources Trust Fund, show the need. There's a lot of need out in rural North Dakota. So we'll see where things fall at the end of the session. And then kind of to dovetail off of what Andrea had said, with the passage of 1385, the tribal systems are now can access state funding a little bit easier. So there are 14 tribal projects from 2 systems and a little over close to $52 million worth of projects. So why is rural water funding needed? The grant funding just helps the rural user and small communities receive that basic necessity of life at a reasonable price. They do pay their fair share. Normal rural customer pays higher rates than their city counterparts, and we all understand that it does cost more money to get a rural water user water. We're not trying to hide that fact by any means, and the grant funding makes that all work. Not sure how this is going to work here, but this is some tap water in North Dakota. I won't tell you where it's at, but you can definitely see it's a tap, and it's definitely from North Dakota. I've been there. I've seen the water. We're trying to correct all those situations like this. In 2024, almost 2025, that should not happen, and so we're trying our best to advocate and to make the stars align to correct any situations like that. Rural water plays a huge part in the ag industry. Huge needs of water for spraying, for livestock. Just makes those industries go. Ag is huge. Of course, we all know that. Most of us come from a ag background or rural areas. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know, but used to be the rural water systems would have high stress in June when there was spraying, and now the stress is prolonged and a little bit longer with the more spraying. And we are working with the Department of Ag on helping them identify places in each county for livestock site analysis, where they're looking at places where they could possibly bring in some larger operations. And water, of course, is a key component to that, along with three-phase power and then access to hard surface roads. We want these systems to be sustainable. All these things that go into making a system sustainable, of course, with the rates I talked about, they're doing proper routine repair and replacement with reserves, and just a great partnership between the rural users, the small cities, the ag industry, and everybody in between to make it all work. So water tip of the day, I know I've talked about this before, right? Everybody has a 5-gallon bucket of black bucket, right? Fill it up with water, put it somewhere that doesn't freeze, right? Our water professionals do an awesome job, whether it's a rural setting or on a city, but sometimes things happen out of their control most of the time. This will get you you won't be able to drink it, but it'll give you a few extra flushes, right? Those of you that, if you haven't had the flush or had to deal with a spouse or a kid, so I'll quickly get off the stage here, but thank you very much. You all do a great job, and if I don't talk to you, have a Merry Christmas.
Normally when you are batting cleanup, generally it's a good thing, and you're there for a reason. But when you follow two people like Andrea and Eric, they have said a lot already, so I'll try not to duplicate anything. But Matt Gardner, Executive Director for the North Dakota League of Cities. Cities, rely on water, and the work that you do is very important. And I think your theme for this conference, and Hunter hit it home, is water matters, and I think the work you do out there matters. And it reminds me of a story a few years ago. There was an ice storm, and this is a different form of water than drinking water I'm going to tell about, but ice storm, northwestern North Dakota. I called after the ice storm. Unfortunately, I was at my home in Washburn when this all happened, and just called a few cities, see how they were faring, and talked to one city. And during the night, one of the generators on a lift station went out, but they knew the ice storm was coming, so they had filled the water tower full of water so that people didn't need their black bucket. They could still flush their toilet. Well, when a lift station isn't working, how do you get that black bucket worth of not clean water anymore around? And so a gentleman in the middle of the night, bless his heart, was out there doing the work, and city residents, people didn't know any different. But, I think the work that you do, managing your water systems is very critical. So the League of Cities, our mission is written there, but really I want to talk about our vision is empowering North Dakota communities. And when you think of a community, whether the one you grew up in or where you live today, there's a lot of different aspects. Water is very important, but public safety, streets, economic development. There's just a lot that goes on in a community. And for the League of Cities, water is one of those aspects. That's very important to us. And so to talk about some stats, I'll get to water here, but I was jotting some notes down before I came over here. And it kind of goes along with Eric's slide. So 355 cities. And it's a little trivia you got to do to yourself, but when you think of 355 cities, how many of those do you think are under 1,000 population? Okay, so there's 307 of the 355 under 1,000 population. Now, what percentage of our population in the state lives in cities? That's 77%. So 3/4 of our population lives in a city. And then this one blew me away. So acres of land within a city boundary, within a municipality, is 377,774 acres. So we'll just call it 300,000 acres of land. 77% of North Dakotans live within that land base. North Dakota is 45 million acres, so less than 1%. So the land base that's occupied by our residents is about 1% of the total land base of North Dakota. And I see Eric had how many feet of water line they have. We don't have that data. I wish we did. We get asked for it occasionally. Have no idea. What I do know is we have 10,651 miles of city streets. And I imagine underneath every one of those city streets is a water line of some kind. Doesn't include out to the curb stop, which runs into the residents. But I'm guessing we have over 10,000 miles of water line out there throughout the state. So a lot of infrastructure. Our cities are maintaining this infrastructure, for the residents and providing clean water, for those individuals. Now, if you look on the screen, you can see some stats, and I'm kind of like Andrea. Hard to see those numbers, but I believe that Eric shared a lot of that information as well already. You can see the number of cities that are within rural water, how many are on their own systems. I think a big one too is the partnership among water systems. We have 16 cities out there that are helping provide clean drinking water, to rural water users as well. Now, this study here was completed in 2022 by, a partnership with us and counties at the Department of Water Resources. So this shows the 10-year and 20-year needs for municipal water supply. So that's not all the water needs, that's just water supply. So you can see in there, the billions of dollars that are needed, over those time frames, for rural or for water within our municipalities. It's pretty significant. And then this chart looks familiar. This is the 25-27 appropriation needs, you for water supply, over 300 million just for municipal water. That's pretty significant. And I agree with Eric's proposal. Rural water, municipal water get, the funding this year, and then we'll share next year, but we know that's not reality. And from a municipal standpoint, flood protection, regional systems, all of those, help feed into our communities throughout the state. And then just to dive into that a little bit closer, the cost share breakdown, you can see the amount needed there. There was 200 total projects on the municipal list and 95 different communities. And when I look back at past years, so the 23-25 same water development plan, there's 139 projects in 91 cities. And 21-23, that was 94 projects for 59 cities. So either communities are trying to figure out this funding source is available, but I think as we talk to communities, what I'm learning is there's just a lot of aging infrastructure out there that communities are having to deal with, and I'm sure many of you in the room are experiencing that as well. And just to echo, Eric's comments about the water resources or the resources trust fund. I mean, it's a game changer. When I talk to my colleagues from other states, other League of Cities, individuals like myself, I mean, we're very lucky to have the resources that we have to implement, and to build infrastructure. Our Resources Trust Fund has been a big avenue for us in the past and continuing to the future. And you can see these buckets. This is the funding from last biennium. If you look at the municipal carve out there, and then the 50 million for Bismarck. So when I think of water supply to municipalities throughout the state, I think 90 million last biennium, that's very beneficial to us. And other water resources, I mean, cities utilize SRF funds. We have the ability to levy property tax, so some of these projects are utilizing property tax, and there's low interest money through the Bank of North Dakota. There's a lot of different resources out there for us for these water infrastructure projects. And I say these municipal projects are very complex. When I talk to engineering firms or mayors, and you hear about the projects they've put together, they're very complex, and the funding that helps them to get them completed, and the Water Resources Trust is, an integral part of that. Almost done. One more slide. So just some other challenges here. The appropriation ask, for our communities, to help, replace water lines, water treatment plants, those sorts of things, is critical to us. We'll be working with the Senate and the House this upcoming legislative session, working with Eric Volk and other partners just to, find what the right mix of funding is for these projects. Just a few things I'd like to bring up. During the governor's budget address, it wasn't in his proposed budget, but he did mention bonding for larger infrastructure projects, and there were a few water projects on there. I mean, I think that's a great idea. Because for one, it guarantees that project will be completed. We have earmarks for some of our larger projects, but at the same time, to have it bonded for, it's going to be completed. And then it puts a little less stress on the Resources Trust Fund, which opens up additional funding for other projects that we may have across the state. So I think that's some sound policy. Another one that we have is lead service lines. There's about 22 connections, 22 lead service lines that have identified in North Dakota. I think maybe around 500 of those have been fixed. We have a long way to go. The EPA passed a rule that within the next 10 years, all those lead lines will need to be replaced. There was quite a few requests within the Department of Water Resources and their water development plan for lead line replacements. And I don't have a solution, but I'm just here, saying that that's something we're gonna have to look at, is getting these lead lines replaced. I don't know if the federal government is gonna come in and make sure that that gets done right here in North Dakota. I mean, that's to be seen. But really, how do we, as a state, come together and figure out how to replace these lead service lines, these 22,000 that we have across state? The other one you see on there is CO2. There's a lot of conversation about CO2 these days, but when it comes to water systems, we need beverage grade CO2 to provide a pH balance for our water. And we have a lot of systems in the state that utilize that. And there's a lot of uses for CO2 these days, so it's getting harder and harder to justify, why we're creating beverage grade CO2 for a water system, which for all of us, we understand, but sometimes the market is saying something different. And prior to 2020, we didn't have a provider in North Dakota that provided beverage grade CO2. And in 2021, well, it was late 2020, Dakota Gasification in Beulah started producing it for us, which was a huge benefit. Now, what happens occasionally is they got to do routine maintenance, so they'll have to shut down. Well, some of our water systems have difficult time during those shutdowns. And so a group of cities have gotten together, and they're working on some additional storage. There's likely going to be a storage facility in Bismarck. They're working through a joint powers agreement today, to help figure out what that arrangement's going to be. But basically to have additional storage, that can be utilized during those times of shutdowns, because there are some communities that I've talked to during those shutdown periods are literally days away from running out of CO2 to be able to provide that pH balance. So that's something that we're working on. Workforce continues to be a struggle, I think, for everybody. our water operators are critical, you know, to this operation. DEQ has recently gone through and made some changes and removed some barriers to training, which is grateful, but, you know, I think our smaller communities out there, you know, that just continues to be a challenge. Then the last challenge we all face is construction prices. You know, I see we raised hands earlier, but has anybody hit the mark exactly on a construction project lately? Right? So, you know, it gets harder and harder. And one thing I feel like we're going to face this upcoming bid cycle is a lot of those ARPA dollars, they have to be spent by the end of 2026. So you start working backwards. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of projects that'll be bid like right now, you know, as projects are being bid this winter. I think we'll see a lot of competition. And when you think of supply and demand, you know, right now there's a lot of demand for people doing construction, for materials, and limited supply of workforce to do those jobs. So I think we'll see another challenging construction year ahead of us. But with that, I'm going to close and just say thank you. Thanks for all the work you do. Thanks for providing clean water for us, whether you're a rural system, regional, a municipality. I mean, I think of transportation. We talk a lot about of interconnected transportation network, you know, farm to market roads. You know, I think water is the same way. You know, how do we get it from the source, you know, to the industry, to the people? And I think all of us in this room together, working together, makes that happen in North Dakota. So thank you.
Next, we're going to be hearing from Senator John Hoeven. He was not able to be here to join with us in person this week as he had to be in Washington, D.C. However, he did send a short video message for us to look at. So,
hello, and thank you for inviting me to your annual convention. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. North Dakota has enjoyed a strong economy with an expanding population and increasing business activity across sectors. However, such growth places new demands on public services and constrain the capacity of existing infrastructure and systems, including water supplies. That's why in the Senate, I'm working to advance critical water projects for our state, including the Northwest Area Water Supply Project and the Eastern North Dakota Alternate Water Supply Project, or NDOS. To this end, I recently secured committee approval of my legislation to reauthorize and increase funding authorizations under the Dakota Water Resources Act. This is a big step for passing this bill through Congress. Doing so is essential for bringing both of these important water supply projects to completion, which will not only serve the vast majority of North Dakota's population, but provide needed capacity to support economic growth in the years to come. At the same time, I continue working as the lead Republican on the Senate Ag Appropriations Committee to ensure strong support for the federal programs that our rural water systems rely on. This includes funding USDA's Water and Waste Disposal Program and the Circuit Rider Program, as well as similar programs at the EPA and Army Corps. In addition, we continue to push back on federal overreach. With the new administration and Congress incoming, we will be in a strong position to repeal costly, unworkable federal rules like WOTUS. We also continue working to pass a strong farm bill that will cut red tape and protect the rights of property owners, including farmers and ranchers. Through these and other efforts, we're working to ensure continued growth and greater prosperity for our state and communities. Thank you for the continued work towards these important goals. Best wishes for an enjoyable and productive event.
Our next speakers this afternoon are Retka and Courtney to give an update on North Dakota's Wetland Mitigation Bank. Matt works at Stantek in Fargo and is a certified Minnesota wetland professional, and a registered North Dakota soil classifier. Much of his current project work is related to USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service Wetland Mitigation Bank program. And he is the lead technical consultant with North Dakota Mitigation Ag Wetland Trade. Drew Courtney is a fifth-generation farmer, proudly working with the land near Oaks, North Dakota, passionate about keeping farm economy strong and rural life vibrant. He is committed to ensuring the future of agriculture. Drew also enjoys educating those unfamiliar with farming about the important and meaningful work being done on their family's operation. Please welcome Drew and Courtney.
Good afternoon. I'm Drew Courtney, the farmer. It's gonna be tough to follow the hunter. Usually it's tough when you come to these conferences. You get done eating that lunch and maybe some things start dozing. So I'm gonna keep hopefully on his momentum here, and everybody can blast through on this one. But yeah, I farm in the Oaks, North Dakota area. Fifth generation farmer, as was mentioned. Got involved with North Dakota Corn Growers Association. We're gonna kind of go over what this agricultural mitigation bank is, and hopefully educate you as we go through the slides. Go ahead and just holler out any questions, or we'll do the best if we can hear, kind of just make this into a conversation if we need to, because the more information we can get to you guys, the better it is, and that's the point of being here. So here we are. We started this North Dakota Agricultural Mitigation Bank. These are the 6 groups. What it turned out, it started to be a USDA grant. And we noticed a need in the state of North Dakota when it comes to drain tiling NRCS wetlands. A lot of people needed a place to mitigate those wetlands, and we just saw a need for producers to have an outlet. And we thought by applying for this USDA grant with these 6 organizations all got together and formed NDAM, North Dakota Ag Mitigation Bank, to make it, it's a farmer-led organization. As you can see, everybody that's listed up there, farmers such as myself. I serve as a vice president on this board. And try to make an easy transition for wetland trades here in the state, where some of that paperwork and things that nobody likes to deal with. We're trying to make it a smooth transition. So this is kind of where we started at. That was back in I believe our organization was formed in 21, and then this was the few steps that we went through, getting the grant approved, working through the process, and finally now this spring we had our first credit sales. So it took quite a while to get to this process, as we all know how fast some of these organizations work, and as fast as you can get through the paperwork and bureaucracy, here we are. So we're proud to say we've been making some credit sales. So that's kind of roughly what we are. If you don't quite, how many people are familiar with like wetlands or wetland trades, things like that? Maybe some farmers in there. Okay, so this will just kind of give you a quick background on what we're trying to do here, what wetlands we're talking about mitigating.
Hi, as mentioned before, my name's Matt. I work for Stantek. Drew and I go quite a ways back, a little bit before 2021, and this program came to be. It's kind of fun to get to present together. So he's been kind of pitching at some of the farm shows and the ag conventions, and I've been doing the same with some of the wildlife groups and conservation organizations. And really, this wetland mitigation is really where these two things are meant to come together. As Dr. Travnicek said, I mean, water can be a tough discussion in a lot of cases, and you throw wetlands and easements in the mix, and it can be quite contentious in certain circles. I didn't see a lot of hands when Drew asked about wetland mitigation, so I'll kind of go through these slides here about, what is wetland mitigation? It's really restoring or creating wetlands for the replacements of wetlands in another location. So existing or undrained wetlands most often aren't qualified for the credit. And there's a few different mechanisms that you can go through to mitigate a wetland. There's wetland banks, which we'll talk about the ag side of the banking a little bit more today. There's also Army Corps generated banks. The DOT has a bank for all the road projects, Ducks Unlimited, has wetland banking in the state through Corps processes, but what Drew and I are here to talk to you about and what we work on are the ag side of things. So that's directly working with farmers on farmland and all through the Food Security Act. There was a second mechanism that some people call on-site mitigation or permit-specific mitigation. We won't touch too much on that today, but just know that that's an option for certain people that have a specific project, a specific drainage project, or whether you're a developer and you have a wetland that you need to mitigate, you can work directly with the regulator on identifying a site for replacement on property that you control. That's different than a bank. So why is anybody mitigating wetlands? It's simple. Wetlands are regulated. They're regulated in a couple different ways. Federally through the Clean Water Act, that's overseen by the Army Corps Regulatory Division, and they're also, and I don't want to use the word regulated because it is somewhat voluntary, but under Swamp Buster and the Food Security Act, there are certain provisions that prohibit growers from draining wetlands to make farmland or to create more farmland or make farmland more productive. And that's all under the 1985 Food Security Act. And that also in 2014 got coupled with crop insurance. So not only can it affect somebody's farm program benefits, but it can hinder them from getting federal premium assistance. So to remain eligible as a farmer, if you've got a drainage project in mind, and you have a wetland on your property, you can either avoid that area in your drainage plan or you can look at mitigation. I could turn this over to Drew, but here are some examples of why people are doing mitigation in the state.
Yeah, why would we do mitigation in our state? On our farm, on the previous slide, that was actually a picture of us I took with the drone. We were doing some tiling on our land. We've had drain tile installed on our farm for a little over a decade now, and have just seen the big benefits of it. So the two sides of this program here is why are you putting tile on your farm, and if you are impacting a wetland and you would like to move it off your farm, that would be one side. And then the other side that we work with too is the bank site hosts. Hey, I got a low producing area on my farm or a previously drained area. Maybe it's a simple spot to place a dike and back up some water. Then we can have Matt come out and survey it and see how much water we hold, so we can have an acreage amount on how many acres we can mitigate there. Are the two options on both sides that we're working with. But basically drain tile, that you see a lot of it going in our area, and it's probably about the best thing since cold beer in a can. And what we've seen is we're just making that land that we have so much better. You know where land prices are at, they're going up. Why not make what you have a little bit better? So this gives producers the option in the state to, if they want to farm that acreage to full potential, gives them an outlet on a place to go with this wetland. And then on the other side of it too, if you're really conservation minded, or you got that 40 acres on your farm that just doesn't produce, or maybe you have some land and you're renting it out, and then this might be a good spot for that too. So we work with both parties and bring them together, cover the engineering costs and the legal fees, and try to take some of that paperwork and headache out of it. And we're also a nonprofit. We're not here to make any money off of this deal. It's just a good program to have in the state.
Well, this is the boring schematic that I put together, so I suppose I can talk about this one. But just in a nutshell, what this program is. So ag wetland trade is an approved mechanism by the NRCS to create wetlands to sell to other growers. We've done this. It's been done in other states. It's been done in this state by other people. So, that's the essence of this program. That's it. The program Drew here is representing is NDAM as a sponsor. They basically hire folks like me, administrative people, and work with landowners to enroll their land in this program to sell to other landowners that have a drainage impact on their farm. So that's what this schematic is all about. At the forefront of this, when they first got the grant, we had to work really diligently with NRCS to outline the framework for this, so that we have an approved plan with USDA, NRCS of how this needs to work, and everything kind of shuffles in behind that, essentially. So there, again, Drew mentioned it. There's got two sides to the program. You've got the sponsor who's working with landowner hosts, and you have buyers. So what are the responsibilities of NDAM in this? There's a number of them. It's, assessing bank sites, hiring people, technical people like me or other help or sometime internally to bring sites to the table, preparing all the documents, design work, engineering work, survey work, legal work, overseeing the construction, working on identifying like the credit trade and credit amounts. They have to track all these credits. This isn't something that's just kind of in the clouds. We have ledgers that we have to keep up, much like a financial institution may have to do. And then they have some long-term commitments to NRCS too, along with this. At the bottom of that left side is easements. I know that's another tricky subject here, especially in North Dakota, but there is, like any other conservation program of this nature, there is an easement. In this case, NDAM is the easement holder, so they're working with landowners, a farm group working with landowners to enroll land to allow other farmers to do what they need to do on their farm. And as a enrolling landowner, you're working with NDAM to complete all those tasks. You're charged with actually doing the construction and a few other things listed up there in return for a bulk sale of the revenue of any of the credits. So this diagram up here shows that 80% of a credit sale goes directly to an enrolling landowner. So you have a piece of property that you're interested in putting into wetland bank, you're getting 80% of any sale that's coming off that credit. It's really meant to be a free market system where NDAM's working with the bank site host to identify a price that they think the market will bear, and even putting up for bid in a lot of options. NDAM needs to take 20% of that cut, one, as an NRCS requirement for financial assurances. In case anything goes wrong with the bank site, there's a pot of money that they can NRCS can access to come in and fix it, and then they take about 10% for their overhead. Drew, anything you want to add on any of that?
No, that works. That sounds good. It is nice too if you are hosting one of these bank sites that say maybe you got a little bit of acreage on your farm that you want to mitigate as well, but if you got 20 acres or something on this bank site potential and you maybe have 1 or 2 acres you'd like to use in this process, we offer that 25% back to the producer as an option that they can mitigate their own water back to their own bank site, and it's pretty nice. And then that's another good incentive too, obviously, would be why you'd want to create one of these bank sites. There's a financial incentive behind it. There's a couple slides down here. We'll kind of talk about a few of the credit sales that have happened and a couple dollars.
I'll breeze through a couple of these slides just on the meat and potatoes of how the program works and really my role into it. But my main role is to find and work with landowners to approve and design a wetland restoration or mitigation site. So we have the state divided up by their major watersheds shown on the slide. The intent of the program is to create banks within the watershed for replacements in the watershed. There are some exceptions that NRCS can approve, but the intent being we're trying to manage water within these watersheds shown up on the board. So what we're doing when we're trying to identify sites that would be suitable or preferred for these sites, we're working with farm ground usually. But one of the most ideal scenarios, if anybody's got expiring CRP, especially with some of the CRP enrollment rates being a little depreciated, or I should say not necessarily rates, but some of the just amount of contracts they can issue. People are looking to keep that land and grass or in a conservation program. And in the case that there was drained or restored wetlands, part of that CRP, that land can get directly enrolled into a program like this, and this program specifically. Also, any marginal crop ground with old, poorly functioning drains are great areas to look at putting into a mitigation site, especially if tile drainage is an option in those areas. But really, anywhere we can capture water via some type of excavation or embankment can be suitable. That last bullet point gets a little trickier, and more design, sometimes some more permitting, as I know some of you in the Department of Water Resources know about, but it can be done. So you find a site, it's my job, or some of the people I work with and other engineering firms would start with a site assessment, site survey. Very early on in the process, we need to get a certified wetland determination. If you're not familiar with that, that's a map that comes from NRCS that outlines all your wetlands on any field and assigns an acreage. That's really critical, and that's really what this whole program is about, is trying to work through the program NRCS to remove wetlands from your maps, and those are basically getting replaced through the mitigation process. So one way to think of this whole program is you're buying a new wetland map. in essence. So anytime we're looking at a new site, we need to have a certified wetland map. And really our job is to identify any constraints from a potential property that would negate it from being eligible for the program. Mainly making sure that whatever we do with wetland hydrology restoration isn't going to affect a neighboring landowner. That's kind of red flag number one. We usually start with a survey. There's a few other things that we look into, making sure we're not going to have any other negative impacts. And if we get through kind of that initial vetting process, we'll get into the bank site design, where we're really getting into the nitty-gritty of where we're going to put ditch plugs or elevations of berms, areas of excavations. Going through setting up goals specific to that property that NRCS approves, and then ultimately working with that landowner to get a contractor out there to do the earthwork and the reseeding. I can kick this off, but I didn't want it to go unmentioned that to enroll any site, as a enrolling landowner, someone that's willing to work with NDEM, again, have to put a conservation easement on that piece of ground. In North Dakota, we're limited to a 99-year statute limitation, so that is a 99-year easement that NDEM essentially holds. But no, it's a farmer group that's behind this. They're doing this in the best interest of farmers. And that landowner still reserves a lot of the same rights, similar to other conservation easements, with access, recreation, mineral resources. You can hay and graze that land. The landowner still is responsible for property taxes and making sure that wetland is maintained and for the life of that easement. Just to touch on a few of what you can do with the land after it's enrolled in a mitigation site like this. You can certainly sell it. There's nothing preventing that, but if you decide to keep it, you are somewhat limited, as you would be with any easement, of what you can do. So there's certain programs that are then ineligible. So any federally funded type easement or program is generally ineligible. So CRP doesn't qualify anymore. A lot of the other wetland programs wouldn't qualify because it's under a conservation easement, but there are eligible programs. North Dakota Game and Fish particularly have programs that it'd still be eligible for, and that easement doesn't prohibit working with non-federal type programs.
And I'll just point out too, those last couple slides that Matt went through, I think that's every producer's head scratcher on what is all that? What does all that mean? What is it? That's the nice part about working with NDAM. That's a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff. He'll tell you what you need to know. We'll go over what's going on, and then everybody will just kind of come together at the end, and you'll see your maps and understand it after that. But all that engineering stuff, they take care of. It's part of the grant. That's why we want the producer to producer, like producer myself, and then we'll work with another producer and simplify the process, because a lot of this stuff can get overwhelming, as you know, with some of this paperwork.
And this is one of our case studies. This is a project down in Dickey County. It was a successful first credit sale. We have more coming. I don't know what else we want to say about this.
Yeah, so this is pretty exciting. We've been waiting for a couple of years now, as you can see, since the program started, and now we can officially say we've advertised some credits for sale, and now we've sold them too. And for an example on what this was, we were actually working with a local sportsman's group. They own some land, and they thought, hey, this is a perfect spot. We can work with NDAM. They'll take care of it. They'll hold that long-term easement. We don't quite have the resources to go. They're going to get out there, such as what we're doing today, talking about the program, maybe finding any potential buyers, or if there's other bank sites on the other side of it too, getting out there. So it just had a real good fit for them. We had, as the building process goes, you can kind of release more credits as they build berms, and we can get into those fine details in the hallway if you want to look into it anymore. But we do a sealed bid process, and they decided to start their bidding at $13,000, and all the credits sold right away for that 13.3 acres at their bank site. And now, after building a berm and doing a few other things, now they're going to have another about 20 acres available here this winter, as long as everything comes about. So I mean, there's a good thing. You're building some good habitat on the bank site side, and if you're on the producer side, you're getting those half-mile rounds back and increasing production. So it kind of rounded all out. It's just a good program, farmer to farmer. we're a farmer-led board. We understand what's going on across state, nonprofit. I think there might be 1 or 2 groups out there that's a for-profit deal, but we just saw the need in the state. Is why we got all these groups together and created this organization, and just kind of getting the word out there that what we got going on. If there's any questions or any more comments from Matt, I guess, on what we're doing, we'd be happy to take them now, or we'll be around the rest of the day. You can catch us in the hallway or wherever you'd like, and we can discuss it further. So, and thank you all for what you do, because I know the water is never a touchy topic in any of these small towns or areas, but appreciate what all you guys do on keeping North Dakota moving forward, on being ahead of the curve on any type of water issues. So, thank you.
Thank you to Matt and Drew. We've heard about this program for a number of years, and it's good to hear that it's finally up and running and actually working. Next on our list of speakers is Sonja Murray. She's from Senator Cramer's office, and she has a letter to read to us. So, Sonja?
Hello, everybody. As mentioned, I'm Sonja Murray. I'm a regional representative for Senator Cramer. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here today, but he did send a letter greeting, so I'll go ahead and share that with you now. Dear friends, greetings to all of you gathered in Bismarck today for the annual joint North Dakota Water Convention and Irrigation Workshop. For decades, you have contributed to the protection, development, and management of one of our state's water resources. While you have championed efforts back home, I want to update you about my work on the federal level and plans for the new Congress starting next year. As a ranking member of the Environment and Public Works Subcommittee on Transportation and Infrastructure, I once again helped craft the biannual Water Resources Development Act, which provides direction to the Army Corps of Engineers. We passed this year's bill out of committee in May with a number of North Dakota priorities, including an increased federal cost level to assist with design and construction of small flood control projects, a pilot program allowing the Corps to accept water reallocation studies completed by state and local sponsors, and permanently reauthorizing the Corps' Tribal Partnership Program. The bill also includes a number of recreation provisions, such as my support for the Lakes Act to allow fees generated at sites to stay there, and the Corps to enter into cooperative agreements with local nonprofits to jointly manage recreational facilities. We also continue to press the Corps on noxious weeds, invasive species, and ensuring hydropower customers are treated fairly as the Corps proceeds on its $1.8 billion Garrison Dam Spillway Improvement Project and other projects down the road. I'm confident we'll get this bipartisan legislation enacted before the end of the year. North Dakotans in every corner of the state are benefiting from the substantial increases in water infrastructure investment through the bipartisan infrastructure law. This funding is delivering wins for North Dakota and leaving a noticeable impact on the expansion of access to clean drinking water across the state, especially for small communities. I look forward to working with you, my colleagues, and the incoming Trump administration on this continued investment and what should take shape in the coming years as those increased funding levels expire. I also look forward to working with the Trump administration on the regulatory front. A number of U.S. Supreme Court cases have swatted down decade-long government overreach, providing opportunities to rightly empower states and put in place more common sense regulation. As a member of the Environment and Public Works Committee with direct oversight of the EPA and other agencies, my staff and I will need support from you and other national organizations to provide direction and evidence to help make this happen. While all of these actions are occurring at a federal and judicial level, the real impact happens here back in the state on the ground. I have appreciated your insight and wisdom on these issues for many years, and they help me do my job better and advocate for you. I hope you have a successful conference filled with productive work and good fellowship. Take care and God bless. Sincerely, Kevin Cramer, United States Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonja, and Senator Cramer for all the work that he does for the water world here in North Dakota. At this time, I would like us all to take a moment of silence to remember those people that aren't here with us today. Some of them that have passed away in the last year or so, and others that just are not physically able to be here. So take a moment of silence here for that. When I first got started coming to these conventions 15 to 20 years ago, there were a group of old men that like to come here to party and to talk about and tell stories about their water adventures. Now I'm one of those old men that like to do those same things. But it's important that we have the new people here. 15 years ago, there were some of the old guys that would take me under their wing and encourage me and to guide me through some of the processes and some of the meetings that we needed to be a part of. And I encourage the new old men to take some of the new people that are here today under their wing and to help them and answer questions and be a part of their life. So we are scheduled for a break now, so we will reconvene here in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe. And at that time, we will continue on with the rest of the session here. So thank you.